This is Coffee with Holistic Dog Professionals. Learn from Roman and David how to become your dog's best friend. Hello everyone, this is Roman, and we are today having coffee with behaviorists. And of course, David is here on board. Hi, David. And we have a special guest today. We have Dan. So David, help us a little bit. Give me a give our friends heads up.
Welcome, sir.
Give David a heads up. What exactly do you do there in Phoenix with all those awesome dogs?
We are a reward-based dog training company based out of Chandler, Arizona, but we serve the greater Phoenix area. We focus on positive reinforcement dog training, building confidence, building the bond of trust, axing the dominance theory and force-based kind of stuff. You know, it's all about a mutual bond of respect and understanding, and really finding what the dog loves and using that to train them. That's how we do it.
So I met recently Dan in my Facebook group, and the first thing that I paid attention to is I like his title. And then I said, wait a minute, what is that? And I was said, I need Dan speaking with us today, because our situation is that people are coming into the idea of like, oh, let's get socialized now, right? Guards down, doors open, dogs out, right? So I was thinking Dan can share something about that. Dan, how about you introduce yourself a little bit to our audience?
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
Maybe you want to introduce yourself to our audience.
Sure. Well, I actually started with a 30-year career in a different field, but that involved training. So I was used to training people, teaching martial arts and women's self-defense classes and that sort of thing. And I had a great love of animals. So when I retired, I started working in a dog daycare. And I was just for the fun of it, I thought, but I was fascinated by the interaction. So I started studying canine communication and body language. And it's hard to study that without learning about learning theory. So I started training dogs in 2011 and then formed Happy Buddha Dog Training in 2012 and got my certifications along the way. So I'm very much in line with what David has said. It's a very reward-based, kind of holistic approach to training. And it's all about relationship building and earning the dog's trust and helping a pet be a full member of a family. So it's really a great experience for everybody.
Super. I really like that. I remember when I started working as a dog trainer, basically started as a pet sitter and then moved on into boarding and training. And I'm coming from an engineer's perspective. So I studied industrial engineering, and there's a lot of automation and information flow and checking and recording and capturing and job descriptions and analyzing all movements. How many steps do you do to the rat? How many inches are you moving forward? And all these things captured. But I always had love with animals and dogs. I grew up very young with all kind of animals. But what made me wonder is how can you combine my industry knowledge into dog behavior, and kind of people like, it has nothing to do with it, right? I was like, yeah, actually it does, because if you look into a machinery, you have to program machines, you have to understand the functions of them, you have to analyze the functionality of it, you have to analyze body language and movements, and how can a person take a fruit, cut it in half, observe it, if it has any problem in it, and then actually bite into it. Strawberries. So you see that it's not as easy as it looks like to create something with your hands without fully understanding how the brain works. And so that information and understanding the data, how do I process information? It's a constant decision making between yes and no. Is it safe for me to do that? Am I there? Can I lift it? Is it my size? Can I fit it in my mouth? No, this information is coming yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And so dogs, they think the same way. One big difference is that they are even more observant than we are, because we assume things, we believe things. Dogs don't. If the door is not open, he has no clue he's behind the door. Even if it smells, the confirmation is on site. And so in order for them to communicate, it's not just them guessing what the other dog said, is what they actually see, and they make that judgment whether or not it's safe. So we have the sympathetic system working, and then we have, the experience working, and then we have the environmental factors. Everything is working as a synergistic system there. And I said, like, I kind of get it. And now this is where I actually start being more effective in dog training, because I was working with dogs who were coming from New York shelters, really bad conditions. And you guys know the dog shelters the dogs who come from shelters in New York and on Long Island. And I found out the less force you use, the more you get achieved, the more you come in with empathy, and the more you come in with love and understanding what a dog is struggling with and how his brain is functioning with yes and no's. This is how you start connecting with the dog. And this is how I started in 2009-ish, about talking about holistic approach, adding food and behavior and environment and relationships and interactions with each other. And I was kind of like, I felt like maybe like you, like I was an alien, and all these people biting me like, oh, if you're not using a shock collar, if you're not using a prong collar, you're not a dog trainer. You're just, I don't say the word, right? And then I know exactly what you guys went through, because I think listening to your guts is a good way to go. So the reason why I was thinking to do that session today is because I have a bad feeling, and I don't want to print something up in the environment, but I think we are over. We trust too much what happens in the past. Our dogs being social, we're totally aware of our dog's feelings, and then we're totally confident, and we come with this anxiety. I need to get out. My dog needs to get out. We need to socialize. I got a new puppy. I need to socialize. I got a new dog from a rescue. I haven't socialized yet. And then we open those floods. And all these dogs come out with this anxiety and excitement and jumping and humping and biting and barking. I said, whoa, hold on there. We shouldn't make that happen like that. We should kind of come in with a little bit more conscious about stuff. David, what do you see right now? Because you're start running classes right now, right?
We do private lessons in-home in our facility. No groups at this time.
What do you predict is going to happen, and how can we stop that from happening?
Well, as far as socializing dogs that aren't ready to be socialized, or where the stimulation is too much, like flooding stimulation, I'm not sure exactly what the question is. The
question is, what do you think is going to happen a week or 2 weeks from now when people just open the doors and try to go to dog parks, try to get back to doggy daycare, take the dogs out?
Well, I think it's going to be a rush for the dogs that are new and insecure and not ready. Humans, we always have it in our head what we want to accomplish and what we want to get done, and very seldom are we concerned with how the dog's feeling about what we're trying to accomplish. So if we are not in tune to the dog's feelings, then there's going to be an increase of fear bites, or fear nipping, or some type of behavior issue where the dog's trying to create distance from what we're trying to get them to engage with when they're not ready. It should really be on the dog's terms and on a trigger by trigger basis, like one piece of stimulation at a time, so to speak. If the dog's not good with one dog, let's focus on working around one dog, not a dog park or a place where they feel overwhelmed.
And what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's going to be overwhelming for a lot of dogs that really have only been with their family for 2.5 months. And I even saw a change in a client's dog that I know was pretty social. I'd worked with the dog and was doing dog walking twice a week. So I could see how he behaved in the environment, but he always had a little underlying stress with novelty. And I think as he returns to public spaces, there's going to be a lot of novelties that he's going to have to cope with. His owner's already noticed that he gets kind of upset when now they leave to go to work, and when they come home, he's reacting in not a very friendly manner toward them. It's like he's upset. So there's a little different, yeah, frustrated. Probably wants them to be home all the time again, and that's not the way it's going to be.
Yeah, they're tired. They want to rest. They've been working all day, and he's been gassing up all day, and he's ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah, and the outdoor environment has some strange things. This is a dog that would stop and bark at a motorcycle because it had a cover over it, or a lawn ornament, a concrete goose one day in the neighborhood. So it took about 3 minutes for him to gain his confidence. Then once he realized it was harmless, he was fine. So he's got these little quirks that come up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the stress.
Go ahead.
I'm a bit concerned that the stress of re-entering the community is going to be overwhelming for some dogs.
I noticed with one of my guys when I started working that they have this, let's say, switch. We have excitement, and then it escalates. It gets to a point where excitement and anxiety switches.
Panic.
Yeah, this flipping point, and then excitement becomes anxiety. And that threshold is where basically the brain switches from conscious thinking into subconscious thinking, kind of like reflex mode, like survival mode. And I think this is where the brain processing lowers down to the basics. So a dog who is a sight hound will focusing more on the sight. A dog who is a scent hound will focusing more on the nose. And we see that a dog who is a scent hound will not be able to process visual because his system basically lowers that down. And a dog who is more sensitive will have less processing memory, RAM memory available. And so his vision will be pixelated, his processing will be slower, and it takes him longer to process what's happening here, comparing data. And I think one reason that happens is because the excitement is too high and it switches to anxiety, and then the brain cannot process anymore. It stops processing.
Can't focus.
Exactly. And I think this is where we have to start from home. Start teaching the dog to self-regulate his excitement and be beyond or below the upper threshold. Where is that threshold? So go ahead, David.
I was just going to say, I tell my clients all the time with dogs with that issue is to exercise them first. Don't let going into a new environment be their first exposure to something new in the day. Run them, get them tired, mentally and physically tired before you expose them to triggers or stimulation. And you're setting yourself up for success that way.
David, what do you suggest?
Dan, you mean?
Dan. Sorry.
I like to recommend that as well, and also to review some training exercises, play some training games in the house, practice a little bit so that when you go outside, you have some tools to use. I'd like to play Find It quite a bit with reactive dogs. So if I can see the trigger before they do it, I'd be engaging the dog in training activities. Maybe I can stimulate that prefrontal cortex and prevent that fight or flight response. I don't want the amygdala and the limbic system driving behavior. So if I can get them engaged in scent games, sniffing around the grass trying to find food, or playing hand targeting games, or making eye contact with me, I found that's been pretty calming. And there's a dopamine release when they're playing games like Find It. So I'd rather get them engaged with me and prevent the alarm response than to try to interrupt it after it's already happened.
Most definitely. And that works with an empty stomach a lot better than, people make the mistake of, they forget and they give their dog breakfast, and then they want to go out and try to counter condition reactivity with treats, and the dog's full. So if they're hungry, it's going to be a lot easier to get them to focus on you as well.
Yeah, good point.
I like to introduce dogs into a transition. Some dogs have hard time after a long period of confinement to go into the transition from one event to another, from in the house, outside of the house, in a play mode, serious mode, and helping them make choices. I think in order to help the dog self-regulate himself, we need to help the dog feel that he's in control of what's going to happen next, especially for dogs who are guardian breeds or protection breeds. They need to control. So if they will go to the park and things are out of control, they are forced by nature to control that and stop from happening. If we're getting excited, they want to control us for a different behavior, because they want to avoid stress. They want to have peace and quiet and all this stuff. So I think helping the dogs feel in control is a good way to start your priming in the house. Like holding the leash, for example, like whenever you're ready, we're going to put the leash on. I know it's very exciting. I know you're going to pee, but I'm not buying into that drama right now. And you know what a beagle will do when he wants to get out, or what a golden want to do, or a lab, or a cane corso, or a mastiff. You're being like slammed by his tail and his slobber all over the place. And so you want to kind of like hold space for that dog to come back to his senses, because you don't want to reward that chaos to walk out the door, because from excitement you're going to switch right away into anxiety as soon as you leave in the door. And Dan already explained what's going to happen if you are too high there. The whole chemicals are gushed out and the dog is in survival mode. And then I see also in case of reactivity, if the dog is too excited and going to anxiety, he will not take any treats, no matter if he's hungry or not, because there are priorities right now. Saving your butt is the priority, and not snacking around on the road. And then you will trigger the dog calming signals, or displacement body language. We consider, oh, my dog is sniffing on the floor all the time. What does he have there? Well, he's trying to calm everybody down. He has his snout on the floor because he wants to mind like his own business, so nobody cares about it. And then we choke him and we want him to get back on the street, and he wants to go back to calm everybody down. And so we see that our behavior basically increases the problem. And how do we become aware of the dog's body language, and what should we do? So my next question is, what exactly are we looking for when we're looking at the dog's behavior, and what should we do to balance that out? David, what do you think?
That's actually a question I was going to ask you guys. Like, I sometimes have difficulty distinguishing, is this dog doing this to calm themselves, or is there honestly a scent there that the dog is picking up on?
Dan, what do you think?
Well, when I'm walking a dog, especially one who has a history of being reactive, I'm looking for natural kind of relaxed scanning behavior. So the head will be turning, looking about. It's not really fixating on anything. And pick up a scent on the ground. I usually see the nose go down. And again, it's that zigzagging pattern where they might be trying to determine, is the scent stronger over here or is it stronger over there?
Okay.
And it usually leads to something. It might be a tree, a vertical surface that may have been peed on or something like that. And I can see that pretty clearly in the winter where there's snow. Other dogs will perk up and they kind of attend to something in the distance, and I think they're picking up a scent.
An air scent,
I give them air scent. So I give them time to evaluate that, and then they appear relaxed again, and they start just walking along. And just as I think people do, we walk down the sidewalk, and we might glance at someone and look away. If we look at something and freeze or fixate on them, or there's muscle tension, so maybe the mouth closes, I look for things like that in the dog too. And when I'm typically standing much higher than the dog, so I'm looking down, and I look at things like their whiskers might pop out, and I'm assuming that's muscle tension that's making the whiskers pop out, or changes in the eyebrows. Just a change in the gait. You can see a relaxed dog is moving smoothly, and then they might see another dog, and everything gets tense. So I saw a lot of that in the dog daycare, and that's how I began learning how to prevent dog squabbles instead of reacting to them afterward.
Yes.
So I try to teach
Stop
dog
it.
owners too.
I like that. I like the concept of being
Interesting.
proactive than being reactive.
Yes.
Right.
Many people are reactive, waiting for the dog to react, and then they react. And basically, it's a chaos of reactions, like called chain reactions. But being proactive, you're going to help everything cool down easier. I teach people to learn what are the subtle movements of stress. So I teach them to bring the dog into the minimum stress needed to make a decision and observe how the dog behaves. I use a 2 treat exercise, and so I have the dog smell that treat and trigger. I want that freaking treat, right? High value treat, and then I open up my arms and create a synthetic problem. The dog has to make a decision. Which one does he want? So obviously he wants both. He's not stupid, right? And what's going to happen next? He will have to calculate. So right now the brain is going hot. Which treat should I take first? And what's the possibility to get the other one too without disappearing? Because we have an opportunistic scavenging predator who starts calculating what is the better option. So strategic thinking is being called in. And then the dog, every time he wants to pick one treat, that treat denies itself. So we have also a visual, like it says no. And then he's going after the other hand, of course. He's not smart, right? Uh-oh, that didn't work either. And now the dog gets stressed. It's kind of like a minimum stress. Like, man, everything that I try doesn't work. What should I do? Now, logical sequence, dogs are team players. And the first thing they're going to do is look at their surroundings. Is anybody out there that knows more than I do? And guess what? You're right there. You're looking at him, and he's like, can you help me? Jackpot. Both treats. Solution. So now we see that the dog reached out for help. So I think the first thing that a dog does, if he's in a problem situation, he wants to reach out to his secure attachment relationship. Can you help me? I'm struggling. I'm going to lose my poop right now with that situation. What can I do? Thanks for checking in with me. Here's the solution. Voila, magic. And the dog is like, holy bark, did it just happen? Like, I got both treats just by talking to you? Yeah. And now that we can take to the next level. You want to go for a walk? Yeah, right? How did it work out for you scratching and barking at the door? It didn't, right? What would you do next? And your dog is like, can you help me? Yeah, I do. I can help you, but I want something in exchange. Which is, oh, you want me to sit because that's what I get things. Jackpot. That was it. So we teach the dog what to do in a crisis. We want the child to call us when he's in trouble. How does he trust us to call and not getting in trouble? If we yell at the child when it calls and says, hey, mom, I have a problem, you're going to pick me up because I got drunk. No, the child needs to trust you. Then he will call you, and then you can help. But if the help is not asked for, you will not be able to help because the dog is blocked. He will not take an additional problem from you because you always come in to add another problem. If the dog has a problem, you yell at your dog. If your dog is pulling on the leash, you drag him back. All these negative associations with what you're here for. And so before we leave the house, creating that association, I'm here to help you, Mari. So if you have a problem, what do? Exactly. Jackpot. And now you see something that you worry about, the first thing is going to do before you even start flirting with a problem is you look up to me. I'm going to flirt with a problem right now. I don't know how it's going to end, but can you help me out here? Yes. So if we have freeze, fight, or flight options, and the dog naturally will choose fight or flight other than freeze, we want him to talk to us first as a team member and says, hey, I have to make a crisis decision right now. Can you help me out here? Yes. Now I can teach you, take over responsibility, what's going to happen next, and teach the dog that we have options. We have the options to walk away from it, and no harm is going to happen without choking, yelling, screaming, poking, putting the buzzer. Just walk away from it. It's a totally okay thing to do. You can let go of that job. So this 2 treat exercise has another level to it. Because if we start creating the stressor, we expect the dog to trust us. And then instead of looking back and forth, the first thing he's going to do is kind of, can you help me? Yeah, I want something in exchange, which is, give me something that is worth to you. Oh, I can sit. Good. So now, instead of wanting to deal with it, you're offering an alternative behavior. Jackpot. Here it is. And then we want the dog to learn to let it go. We know we bred dogs for 40,000 years to not let go of things, not let go of the intruders, not let go of the hunt,
Track and hunt.
of the property, right? And now we want the dog to let go of that dog who's barking really mean at him. Okay, I would just kill that thing, be done with it. No, we tell the dog, let it go. Why? Because you're there scared over the situation. Somebody has to deal with it. So if you don't teach the dog to let go and create that transition, a thought form of how does it let go looks like. Let go means if you have that option, all you need to do is back away from it. Relax. Let it go. Trust your partner. Thank you. Here you go. Jackpot. So if we don't do that at the house, how will the dog learn that? And how will his body memorize that in crisis? Why? And Dan was already in martial arts. Why do we do 45 minutes of warming up and doing the exercise? Why do we only do 15 minutes of actually hands-on or hands-off fighting? Because our body needs to warm up. Our body needs to memorize that. All the cells have to take that information in. What do I do if I do a my Gary? What do I do if I do any other reflex? Program my body to act upon things that are triggered before my brain can think about it.
Muscle
That's
memory.
The whole point. Exactly, muscle memory. So if I don't train my dog's muscle memory in the house, how can I expect him to handle the situation outdoors where the whole chaos break out? I see people just wrapping the leash up before they even communicate to the dog, while the dog is going, I'm gonna kill him.
Yeah.
You have
They
only,
get the Statue of Liberty going. The
right.
leash
You
is,
have
like,
only
way up
1
here,
second to make that decision. A second is very short, considering the dog, from my perspective, can make 14 decisions per second. I need 3 seconds to step on my freaking brakes when I'm driving behind the car.
Yeah, they are amazingly fast. We have to be much quicker when we're handling them, for sure.
So proactive parenting starts before you put the damn leash on, before you put the harness on. Each action is a reward of the dog's mindset. So if you reward anxiety instead of excitement, you're going to fail your dog as soon as you open that door. And if you see your dog is failing on his way to the dog park, you're going to make a U-turn and start all over again, because that is not how you get to the dog park. Foaming, panting, throwing up in the car before you even get to the dog park, that's a disaster to happen.
Yeah.
And if we as professionals, or you as a dog lover, see that from happening, don't yell at those people, how you deal with your dog, because you're being reactive as well. It says, hey, let me help you here. I think your dog is very stressed. Let me give you some tips. I would suggest do another circle. Go around the dog park, let the dog chill out, let him pee all over the place, and then go in the dog park. Maybe just skip the dog park for today. Maybe you go tomorrow for the dog park. Make a successful event out of it. Even if that means you have to go to the veterinarian. Many people just wait for the veterinarian to open to get with their dogs or the cats into the veterinarian's office. What's there gonna happen? We don't have safety barriers. We don't have fancy between. We have a cat, a dog, a bird, a pig, a dog, and another dog barking and yelling at each other because everybody's basically shut down. How would that dog survive that vet visit, or that cat? I don't know. So yes, right now we're waiting in the car because that's a regulation, but soon enough that car will be waiting in the waiting room, people signing up for their things, the dog is barking next to him, he's choking himself to get to the cat or the bird because everything is so excited, and then we're going to trap him into that vet visits box office, and that dog will go ballistic when the first person comes in. So
yeah, that's a process. I mean, we do those visits before we even go in, whether it's a dog park or a vet. We'll just work outside outside of the vet or outside of the dog park and just work obedience to where it just becomes a part of, the environment. It's not necessarily the focal point. And then with the vet, maybe it's just go in for a meet and greet, go in and say hi to the staff, get some treats and leave. Don't even make it about staying in there or getting the exam or anything at first, just to help with that better association. If it's an extreme case, you just want to call ahead and let the vet know, and they can make arrangements for you to get you straight back into the room so you don't have to wait into the waiting room. But it's a process of training and management, I think, kind of meet together, when you're dealing with distance, for sure. Not all dogs can function that close to other animals.
Gotcha. Okay, let's get this a little break. Let people reminding what we're doing here. This is Coffee with Holistic Dog Professionals. Learn from Roman and David how to become your dog's best friend. And today we have Dan with us, who is a professional, and he has a lot to say because actually you also write blogs, right, for different outlets. Tell us a little bit about that.
Are you referring to Bark's blogs?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a great opportunity. I belong to Pet Professional Guild as a volunteer, and they have a monthly blog. So anybody who's interested in writing about dogs or training and behavior or veterinary care or grooming could contact Susan Nilsson at Pet Professional Guild, and you'd have an opportunity to do what I'm doing, which is to write about the things I'm passionate about and the experiences I have working with dogs. It's a great way to get a positive message out there so we can help pet owners and their pets. And sometimes I write articles for Barks from the Guild magazine, which gives you an opportunity to reach an audience potentially of 11,000 PPG members in 18 countries. Mm-hmm. So it's a great way to coordinate with other professionals and support one another and share information.
That's great,
awesome.
Man.
Thank you so much. So let me pull that in here so people can see that. That's what it looks like. barksfromtheguild.com. I spell checked right? Yeah, there are many people there who want to volunteer and support the cause. I'm also a member. And I think, good groups, healthy groups, they're looking for animal wellness and not just welfare, needs to be extra supported, because it's not about having the people feeling good about their dogs. It's about the dogs actually feel good living with humans. And I think that's our main purpose. And I think that's why the way we approach things, it's not about getting the rights to handle our dogs and, establish our leadership and push the dogs to specific behaviors that we want. And I kind of will use that term, and I take the hit for it. Sometimes we come in very narcissistic about what we want the dogs to do, not actually recognizing what the dogs are capable of doing. Like, I want my dog to be social. Well, maybe your dog is not social. Maybe your dog is just an introvert. Okay, I want my dog to be friendly with kids. Maybe that's not a good point because your dog is just scared of kids. Maybe just conditioning him to accept that fear is not the right way to go. Okay, doesn't mean you have to give up your dog, but you have to do a little bit more work than that. Okay, so back to our today chapter where we're talking about how to prevent a disaster after we're opening the floodgates, into the social interactions. What are the aspects of socialization? What do we include in the term socializing? Because I hear people says, I have to socialize my dog. I have this anxiety. Oh my God, my dog needs to be socialized. What does it include? What do you think, David and Dan?
Oh, well, that's a vast array of everything in the environment. Sights, sounds, smells, objects, different kinds of people, textures, you name it. It's all exposure to stimulation, but it has to be done in a controlled, systematic fashion to where the dog is not stimulation overload, frantic, and they can't process and they panic. So it's got to be done in baby steps, along with understanding, knowing your dog. Is my dog confident or fearful or prey driven, or has a issue with people or what have you. You have to know your dog, and you have to know your dog's body language. So if you take those slow baby steps and then you can read your dog, you're setting yourself up for success, especially when you practice I call it the reorientation reflex, where the dog is conditioned to always check back in with you no matter what it is. And triggers, the reward is always behind the dog. So if the trigger is this direction, the reward is behind me. So when the dog sees a dog this direction, they're conditioned to look away for the reward. So that breaks up and they have an alternative behavior to actually add distance and turn away from that trigger, which is going to minimize the reactivity, anxiety, and all that mess.
Mm-hmm.
Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And I think the basis of socialization really is in classical conditioning. So that we're making every experience a positive one.
Mm-hmm.
To give you an example, I was training a poodle puppy in the village of Oregon, and we were taking the training out into the neighborhood. So I was walking along Main Street, and along came 3 kids riding skateboards, and the puppy showed signs of fear. So if I wasn't able to read the body language and see that the dog was fearful of the kids on skateboards, I wouldn't have addressed the underlying problem. But we went to the skateboard park, and we started across the street. So we're about 100 feet away, and I was watching to see that the puppy was comfortable. And every time the puppy became aware of a skateboarder moving, I delivered food. So it was a cause and effect. There were 7 kids riding skateboards. So every time the puppy would hear the noise and look at the skateboarder, I just popped food in his face. And probably within 20 to 30 minutes, the puppy was leading me closer to the fence at the skateboard park, and ended up laying down on the grass, very relaxed, just watching the kids go back and forth. And all of that would have not been possible if I failed to read the body language. And once he was happy with the skateboarding activity, we went back to training mode. So I started working on operant behaviors.
Right.
Dan, do you use a verbal marker or a clicker, or do you just give it treats when the dog acknowledges the skateboard?
That's a great question. And from what I understand, a marker would be useful in operant conditioning, but it's not relevant to classical conditioning. Classical conditioning operates on that emotional level, and we're trying to change the way dog feels about something, where operant conditioning is operating on behavior of choice. So it's really a combination of the two, but I don't use a marker. If the puppy saw the skateboarder, I just quickly pop food in his face. And then a few repetitions, he began giving me an operant behavior of see the skateboarder, look back at me, and then I delivered the food.
Okay. Because I learned a little bit from Mick Moeller. He wrote Reactive Rover, and what they would do, Pat Miller as well, is they would click. First, obviously, the dog knows what the click means. Click means treat. That's the classical part. But this would be, I don't even know if it's operant or if it's kind of an extension of classical conditioning, where you want the same brain association of acknowledging a dog as the sound of a clicker. So when I see a dog, the dog is the cue to expect a treat. Not so much a physical behavior. It's just a brain association. Like when I see the dog, that means treat, the same association as if I hear the click. I don't know if that makes sense or if that's something that would work, but it seems to be sometimes effective. Sometimes they don't care about the click because they're too excited, But so you're saying as soon as the dog acknowledges the trigger, just immediately put food in his mouth, whether he's looking at you or not. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that's how I start the process. But what I observe is that after a few repetitions, the dog begins automatically looking back at me. So I'm not really cueing anything. I'm giving him the choice. So
Right.
he can look at the dog as long as he wants to, but when he makes the choice to look back at me, that's what I reward. So we're getting that visual disengagement,
Hmm.
and I might take a step back and offer the food, say at my leg. So the
Hmm.
dog is now turning away from the trigger and moving toward me. So it's creating some distance. So you're getting that distance increasing behavior without the agonistic display of barking, lunging, growling, that sort of thing.
I see. Yeah,
I'd
that
say
makes
that
sense.
something that worked for me well for dogs who have trauma and have extreme reactions to triggers. I recognize the dogs respond to the idea and the future prediction what they see is going to happen to them. So
Hmm.
they see the form of a dog, and I'm explaining even if that dog is a picture on the screen or if the dog is a fake dog in the distance, the dog, as soon as he's triggered, his sympathetic system is activated and he's not being able to think about it. And my question is, how can I help the dog to think about it? First of all, I have to get him away from the trigger. Okay, so get him out in a safe distance. And when he gets in a safe distance, the dog will naturally get back and communicates with me. Then I'm saying, okay, now that we're safe and everything is good, I'm here to help you. We are in a safe environment. How about you flirting with the situation that just triggered you? I would reward the dog for looking at it once, and I would reward the dog for looking at me too.
Hmm.
That and this are good.
Yes.
So, in order to flirt with it, you have to associate your emotions with it. Right now, your emotions
Hmm.
is you're going to get killed, and then you have a fear response. But is this
Hmm.
the reality? I want the dog to question that. I want to question what he sees. Is it really real? Is it really what's going to happen in the future? Maybe we're going to change that mind. How do I feel as your partner? Well, I feel good about it and you don't feel good about it. How about we find middle way? How about we assume that that is not as bad as it looks like because I obviously feel fine about it and you don't. And I will go with you there whenever you feel good about it or better.
Hmm.
If you feel better about it, what would you do to get curious about it? Thank you for sitting. That lets me know that you want to get closer. Here's a treat for sitting. And now I move on. I give my dog that choice to let me know when he's willing to go back to his natural curiosity. What's out there? Is it real? Can I smell it?
Hmm.
Sure, let's go together. And as soon as I feel my dog is fearful, I'm here to support your emotions. Hey, buddy, I think you have a good point. You have a valid point to be scared. How about we sit down here and watch that? Is it really as bad as it still looks like? Well, it was worse back there. Now you feel better about it here. How do you think it's going to end up? I don't know. Good. Let's wait a little bit. How about we go around it and observe all these perspectives? Well, you know, it looks like a scavenger. It looks like a crocodile. Well, maybe it could be a car. I know these eyes look like an owl and his mouth with teeth because it's a BMW. Maybe it's just a car we can have fun with. Because I always to see the dog's perspective, not what I see as a car, is what dog sees as a predator. His not this primary system is triggered to be a predator because that skateboard sounds like a growling avalanche. I was lucky to have a slow motion recording of my dog of me skateboarding, and I wanted to see how the dog is going after the wheels because I was always interested. Why is the dog going after the wheels of the skateboard and not at its skateboard itself? The dog is going under those that he considered limbs. Why would he think that thing has limbs? Because he thinks it's an animal that growls at him.
Hmm.
And that slow motion video, I heard the wheels rolling over the asphalt. Like, wow, it sounds, I got goosebumps. It sounds like growling. It was kind of like an epiphany. Holy
Mhm.
bark. The dog thinks that's scared, but is growling at him.
Hmm.
Yeah, that
Oh, that
makes
makes
sense.
sense. Meaning is if my dog is in high alert and his processing speed is high while we're here in engine running, he hears explosions. Huh. And if that wheel rolling sounds like a growling, that makes totally sense. The dog feels threatened by that animal that hasn't have any definition, is attacking us and is gonna attack back. Now, what do I do about that? If I help him understanding, not conditioning only, understanding that that is not really a threat. Why would I condition a dog to accept something that he's scared of? It's not going to work long term. And I understand the concept, like you have to condition it at some point. Yeah, but it should come from a dog's understanding that, hey, dude, that's totally fine. You know what? I can do skateboard myself. Instead of trying to condition the dog to accept what he actually doesn't like. Because I will have a longer period of time to work on that acceptance while the dog just recognizes that, hey, I thought it was a real dog. And the thing is, it isn't even real. I can hump it. It doesn't do anything in return. Like, right, just let it go. It's fine. Let's go. And I think that part is missing sometimes, that we don't let the dog flirt with the problem and he never can change his emotions about it. It will always be a problem we have to condition, other than the dog understanding, like, hey, dude, this is my experience. Those dogs are actually 50% fake. I don't need to worry about that. If he doesn't worry, I don't care. And I guarantee you, dogs don't like to worry about stuff. They rather hang around doing stuff, playing and getting games. They're social animals anyway. Mm-hmm. So we have a question here from Lisa. Would the same process work for fence aggression? We have recently issue that started with a 3-year-old Neapolitan Mastiff who has decided he needs to bark, growl, and get aggressive at people walking by with or without dogs along with upper balcony. He is building aggression. He is building aggression, sorry, not building. David, what do you think? What will be your response?
Number one, I would have to look at how much mental and physical exercise is this dog getting. Does he have an outlet to do anything else? Or is that like the only form of entertainment or excitement the dog has all day? One, you've got to be able to control the access to those guarding points. You've got to create alternative games and exercises to where leaving that area alone is more rewarding. I would do socialization exercises where he gets rewarded for coming up to that fence and meeting people for treats. You get stable dogs to come up on the other side, stop and sit. They both get treats. You know, you've got to change the association of that fence line. I mean, that's a natural guarding behavior. You've got a guarding dog. He's doing what he thinks he's supposed to do, is keep strangers off his property. You know, so it's walking him through alternative behaviors in a controlled fashion. So he has go-to behaviors to do, not just no, don't, leave it, you know.
Dan, what do you think?
I'm thinking, I agree with what David said, and I'm thinking of a dog that I worked with who has a fenced yard, and on one border of the fence there is a dog who is pretty reactive. So every time that dog comes into their yard, it rushes to the fence, and the two dogs engage in fence fighting. So I taught some basic operant behaviors to the client's dog: look, contact, touch. So we get doggy nose going to the palm of my hand, and find it. So the client dog would start searching in the grass. And I began working along the fence line when the dog was not there to make sure that look and touch were working, and we moved further away from the fence. And anytime the neighbor's door would open, the client dog would perk up and Orient, and was apparently waiting for that dog to come out to start barking. So I started marking that and rewarding and redirecting to find it. And we got to the point where the neighbor dog would come out into the yard, would see my client's dog, would rush to the fence and start barking. And the client's dog would look at the neighbor dog, look back at me, and then start playing training games. So we completely eliminated behavior. As David said, we were giving the dog other things to do so that when the trigger appeared, the dog had different behaviors to engage in. So that worked really well.
I noticed the client or the comment was the dog goes on walks daily. That's all well and good, but that's not giving him something else to think about in the home. And for some dogs, walks aren't enough. I don't know the level of this dog's needs, but for some dogs, they need to run to exertion. Some dogs are mentally busy. So they need mental projects, not just on a walk, but inside the house. You need to devalue outside and increase the value of interaction and activity inside. Meanwhile, blocking off the visual stimulation. Don't let him just sit there and stare down out at the balcony waiting for something to come along, because then he's just stalking. He's just waiting, and then his reactivity is going to be even worse. So you got to teach him that any of those triggers means a recall inside for chicken, play, love, praise, attention. If he's mentally relaxed, tired, meaning he got worked, like he ran to exertion before this counter conditioning exercise, he's going to be easier to redirect to a new activity. If he's got a full tank of gas or just a walk to the end of the street may not be enough for him, then he's going to be looking for those outlets. But it's all about redirection and teaching him that the triggers mean now recall to you to do something else. You got to find out what he loves the most and use that as the bridge to redirect his focus away from the triggers. And then try to control that visual if you can.
I found that we have always to come from a dog's perspective. Why does my dog behave that way? First of all, dogs love to have a job. The reason why they're in the family is because we obviously agree with their skills. And I feel the dogs have this need to offer their services to what they consider family, and we are family. We are not a dog family, we're just family. It doesn't really matter what species we are because just we are together. And so each person and each individual in that family has a particular job description. Everybody has responsibilities. So if I open that door into the balcony, if I open that door to the yard, I basically agree upon the job description that my dog has in mind when he leaves that door. Now, how can I modify the job description? The job description is, I need to get out to protect our property. And I was like, I have to open the door. Right there, I'm signing that contract of that dog's job description. Why would I intervene in his job if I don't agree at the first place? So I think before I start redirecting the dog, before I intervene in his job, and I know some dogs who are working breeds, Cane Corso, Presa Canario, Neapolitan Mastiffs, Great Pyrenees, you name it, they have a very clear picture of justice over their job. Like if a cop pulls me over for speeding and I'm a friend of his, he still has to cut me his ticket because that's his job. If I kind of grab his pencil and his block out of his hand, I'm going to be arrested because I intervene in his job. So if I try to grab my dog by the collar or intervene in his fear fuel, the dog will try to avoid me. Is that what I want? Do I want my dog to snap at me because I intervene in his job by grabbing the collar while he's doing his job protecting the yard? I will be a problem. So I say, let's start all the way back and says, first of all, I need to disagree with your job description. So I have to create a new one. Before I fire my dog from his previous job, I have to give him a better upscale job description where I says, hey, I want you to be my personal protection dog, but I want you to protect me when I need you, not when you think I need it. I'm not a victim of my own dog for protecting me and my property if I don't have an on-off switch. Right? So first description is the reason why you get out is because you follow instructions. The reason why you leave the house is because you offer me an alternative behavior. So rule number 1, pay attention if I need it. And if you feel the need to talk about stuff and explain your stuff about others, I want you to take permission first to do that. So before you react, what do? Check in with me. And I agree also with Dan on that and David. Mm-hmm. I want the dog to look at me, not because I told him, it's because I want the dog to feel the need to check in with me first as his partner in crime kind of thing. Like, I'm going to kill this guy today. And like, not really. It's not a good day. Maybe tomorrow, but not today, right? And then once that is there, then I can say, okay, now thank you for paying attention to me. I would appreciate you being with me. I love that. So if you want appreciation on your job, just follow instructions. Consider that as a new job description. Of course, you're going to fail. Of course, you're going to go run down there. But remember, if I need you, I'm going to call you back. So I need a good recall. Hey, look, come here, come back here. How about you lay down here? I appreciate that. I know you screwed up on the job. Who gives a bark? Stay with me. I appreciate that more than I appreciate that. If I buy into the drama and I react aggressively towards my dog, reacting aggressively towards a trigger makes me part of the crime. And the dog would take that as a sympathetic response, empathetic response. Oh, we are upset for the same reason. We should kill that guy. While I am attacking my dog is attacking the person because he thinks I'm attacking both. It's a wrong communication here.
Yeah.
Let's go back on the drawing
Absolutely.
table and let's describe the dog job description. What exactly does my dog do? What are his breed traits? I agree with, walking the dog and do all these things, but all these include his job description. So if my dog is going ahead of me and is like, oh, let me secure the space. Hey, dude, what are you going? We are not on the same page here because you didn't see me stopping, and all of a sudden I end up with a tense leash. Is that what we're doing here? I don't like it. I'm going to go back home in that behavior. So if you want to go forward, we're going together, loose leash. That's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying being the alpha and dominance theory and the dog should not look to go in the front. I don't mind where my dog goes as long as he knows where I am. Where am I? Am I with you or are you alone? If you're alone, I'm going back home. But you know what? We are attached on a leash, so obviously we both go home. So if you want to entertain and enrich yourself, we can do that together, but you cannot do it alone. So this means that the job description has all these mini arms that go to all interactions of the dog that we have to be aware of. So I need to constantly be aware of my dog's job description. And if I go to the bathroom and my dog is following me, whoa, that's another job description because my dog feels the need to protect me. So all these aspects have to be addressed and pointed out to the dog. I don't want you to follow me. How about you back off? I need my privacy in my bathroom. I don't want to be observed and protected all the time from myself. How about you mind your own business? How about you lay down and chew on something? Oh, no, I have to protect you. No, you don't. How about you lay down? That makes me more happy. So there is no need for correction. And there's no need for conditioning. If the dog knows his freaking job, that's what he lives for. The compliance to his belief of an offering towards his family, I think, is the primary reinforcer, if I say the term correctly, for why the dog is doing what he does. So if I try to lure him away from the job, he's going to magnetize, go back to his job as soon as the additional reinforcer goes away. Mm-hmm. Is that what I want? Or what I want the dog change his mind about the job itself?
I would think you want him to change his mind.
I think so too.
Get him to make that choice on his own and not just be forced to do it.
But we have to be very careful the way we approach it because it's not, the dog is not wrong doing what he believes is right.
Right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. If I insist and be upset about it, I'm just making his job more miserable. And what the dog will do, he becomes violent because I am not offering justice. And especially in the Opponent, the Mastiff, a cane course, I have the high sense of justice. And if I don't comply to the justice, the dog will turn against me because I am not helping him on the job. I am being influencing him, and we will fail as a family. Shut up, he will tell me, and will snap at my hand. And then all of a sudden, I have to call the trainer, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That balcony is, can be problematic because it's such a confined space. There's not a lot of space to add distance, and move around. I would experiment with either a treat and train, those the button where you deliver the treats. So you put that inside. Obviously, the dog's hungry and hasn't eaten yet, and the door to the balcony is open. And when the dog is out on the balcony, the split second he sees a trigger, hit that button, dude, and now treats are gonna appear inside the house. So he sees a dog outside, dude, treats are appearing in his house, and now that dog means I need to go eat. So now he's got a new association, an alternative behavior. Everything out there means I'm getting fed inside. So now inside's much more important, and the outside becomes more secondary. I would try that route first, or the find it game or a squeaky ball, anything that's coming around the balcony, squeak, squeak, tennis ball inside. Whatever drives, if the dog's fetch or ball motivated, you could teach him that as well. But that association now means find it in some capacity away from the trigger, and that should help counter condition that balcony issue.
So Dan, as a summing up, I think you're good at that, making kind of like an overview. What exactly did we find out today about socialization after that COVID? What do we want people to take away from here?
I'd like to think in terms of kind of refreshing basic training. So you have some tools to use, and training, in my view, is a way to strengthen communication and bonding, and it gives a dog some control. They get to make choices. And when you do go outside, I would just go at the dog's pace. Maybe short periods of time outside, let them experience some things, make it a happy, joyful process, and go back inside. So you're gradually exposing them to the environment instead of taking them for an hour-long walk where there might be a lot of flooding and they get overwhelmed. And if you're reading the dog's body language, they'll tell you if they're comfortable, if they want to keep going, or if they'd like to take a break. So I'd encourage people to be patient and understand that their dogs have gone through a lot of stress too.
Absolutely.
David, what is your takeaway here?
I would say just remember it's a two-way street. It can't always be about just what we want. You know, it has to be a mutual meeting between dog and handler. You know, the dog has to be mentally able to do what you're asking them to do. If they can't, whether they're too fearful or too excited or what have you, you have to address the dog's state of mind and not just focus on perfection. And if you do that, then those responses will change and you're going to be headed in the right direction.
I think my takeaway is that you guys are awesome.
Okay. Likewise, my friend. Thank you.
I think we captured pretty much a wide range of behavior aspects, and we went pretty deep. Dan also explained about the chemical that happens in the dog's brain and how these body systems work. We also discussed about conditioning, and that we have to start creating association with positive outcomes when the dog sees a trigger. We have to discuss that, or become aware of that before we leave the house. We have to build up our strong relationship with the dog, help the dog understand that we are here to help the dog. We have to become aware that intervention is a good idea. We have to use the right tools. Not intervening in the dog job subscription is helping the dog, creating new thinking pathways out of stress and out of triggers. Sorry. And also, as Dan and David also said, right, we have to recognize the thresholds where the dog has, where he doesn't get overwhelmed emotionally. So we have the physical threshold, we have the emotional thresholds. We cannot just pour in, socialization, pour in all these factors, and make the dog crazy, overwhelmed with information. Then we're coming on top of that and add our stuff on top of it, and the dog basically shuts down and he's just start being avoidant. And then we see that if the dog has a response to a trigger, it's because of his belief system, what the outcome would be of that situation. So usually lack of social skills, lack of predictability of what's going to happen with that, what's going to happen to me with that. This is where we have to focus. And sometimes we have to start all the way back in the house and start, hey, me being with you, it's a good experience. And maybe I screwed up because I used the prong collar, the choke collar, the e-collar, poke you, bark at you, choke you, whatever. I'm sorry for that, but now I'm starting from scratch. Here I am trying to help you. And I think dog will not forget about it, but will accept us change our mindset about that. And he will appreciate that now we are supportive. And it's just sometimes when our boss or our employer changes his mind about us, says, you know what, actually I appreciate you. I didn't have that opinion before, but now I do. And you're like, really? You change. You take that as a new fact and says, maybe that guy is good a guy. Maybe that person is here to support me. Yeah, I will get rewards, but that person is aware of my emotions, and that makes me feel good. We feel good. We are a good team. And so when we go out to socialization, we have to keep always that in mind. Are we a good team, or is it all about the human? how I feel about my environment, how the neighbors look at me walking with a crazy dog. How about people says, this dog and this person actually love each other. Yes, we can use that term. They love each other. They are together. They are a team. They function together. They are in synchronicity. They are just a team. So I think that is what we do here. We're trying to see the holistic aspect of it.
Mhm.
What is a person? What is a dog? They are not two different species. We are all both on Earth and both have the same problems. We are both partners. We are a family. Does it really matter what different species we are? If we are just emotionally connected, that's just fine. I feel. Yes,
Absolutely.
everybody has different needs, but bottom line is we are a team and we keep ourselves together in good times and in bad times. So if we meet a bad time, we're both together and we're not punishing and hitting each other because of that. And I think that's the big takeaway. Going outside in public is being in alignment with each other and understand each other needs and fears and help each other out and not try to fail each other on the way there.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely. It's a lot easier to point out people's weaknesses and put them down than it is to pick them up off the ground, you know.
Yeah,
That's
and
for sure.
especially our dogs, because when our dogs fail, the system will fail them and we fail them too. It's not their fault. They didn't choose to come into our house. They didn't choose our environmental factors. We are 100% in control of their environmental factors. So we are 100% responsible of how our dogs feel and are exposed to the environment. The rest, 42% of the genetic factors, we are not really responsible personally, but we control the other factors. So I think we should focus on that. And my dog is complaining, like, "Hey, my factors, I have to go to the bathroom." We're getting out too, buddy.
Right.
I so appreciate you guys today. We captured a lot of stuff, and I wish those people can able to watch to the end because the whole thing was just information. And yeah, if you guys made it to the end, please share your opinion in the comments on Facebook. How do you feel about that session today? I think we didn't cover 100% everything, but we covered a lot. And I think it's totally worth watching the whole thing and sharing it. I so appreciate you, Dan and David, for being here today. And I think we should
Likewise,
sit
Roman.
together and
Thank you.
kind of discuss further about stuff. Thank you again.
You're very welcome. Nice to meet you, Dan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. You guys have a great day. We'll see you
You
next
too.
week. Okay. Bye now. Thank you guys for watching.
This is Coffee with Holistic Dog Professionals. Learn from Roman and David how to become your dog's best friend.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not okay.
Yeah, we're still talking.
Thank you so much, Dan, for today.
Thank you.
Did you like it?
I did. Yeah. I like David quite a bit too.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I like